So now that you have joined all of your squares together, we're now going to be adding the border. So for the border, we're going to be doing 8 rounds in total. We have 2 rounds of the contrast colour, 5 rounds of the main colour, and then we're going to add this final round, which is with the contrast colour, just to finish off the blanket. Just gives a little bit of an extra detail to the edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our contrast colour and we're going to be joining in the corner stitch, the chain 1 of the very top corner. So to do this, I'm going to make a slip knot on my hook. So we're going to find that chain 1 space and go into that stitch and yarn over, pull through. And we're going to begin by chaining 3, 1, 2 and 3. This chain 3 is going to count as a half treble crochet and a chain 1, or in US terms that's half double crochet and a chain 1. And that's going to be the case for the entirety of the border. We're then going to work one more half treble into that same space. And then we're going to work our way along each of these squares. So each of the squares has 61 stitches altogether. Those 61 stitches will count in the corner. So we have a double crochet, a chain 1 and a double crochet in the corner. So our first stitch is always going to be this double crochet, and then it will start with a drop down treble. You'll count all the way across and you should have 31 stitches by this midpoint. So 30 stitches on one side, not including this corner. So 30 stitches, 1 stitch in the middle and 30 stitches all the way to this double crochet just here. And then we also have the same on the other side. So our corners are attached, but we have our first double crochet here. We'll have 30 stitches, 1 stitch in the midpoint, and then 30 stitches all the way to the other side. Obviously you will have more panels here, but I am just working with 2 panels just for this demonstration. So you'll find that very first double crochet and work into there and work your half treble crochet, and then you'll work in the top of each stitch all the way across. I highly recommend that you count your stitches to that middle section or all the way across. So you'll have 31 stitches once you get to the very central stitch, ignoring those corner stitches. And then you will have 30 stitches on the other side to make 61 stitches in total. So go ahead, work your way across until you get to your first join, and I'll show you how we're going to work over this join. So we've now worked our way across to this join here, and we've worked our last half treble into the double crochet of the corner of the square. We now have the join. We now have the chain 1 space, the join and the chain 1 space, which can be a little bit tricky to see because it is close together, but the thing that we're looking for is this first double crochet just here. If you're really not sure where to start, you can find your central point here, your 31 stitches or 31st stitch, and count either 31 from that stitch or 30 stitches in between, and then you will find your very first stitch just here, and you'll work your half treble into that stitch. Now if I just add another stitch there, you can see that you have a gap here, and that is absolutely fine because we still have our tail end here, which we can use to close up that gap when we sew in our end, and that will make it just look really nice and neat and tidy. So you'll continue working away until you get right to the opposite corner. So you'll work over all of your squares and work your way to this next corner stitch. Pause the video and meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way across and you've counted your stitches across each of the squares. And now we have just done our last half treble into this corner space. We then have a chain one and another double crochet just here in that corner space. And what we're going to do in this chain one space is work a half treble crochet. Might be a little bit tight. A chain one and a half treble crochet into that same corner space, like so. And then you can rotate your work to work down the other edge, and this is going to be exactly the same as before. So you'll start in that double crochet, you'll ensure you have 61 stitches all the way across, and then when you get to the next join, you're going to miss the chain space, the join and the chain space, and work your first stitch into the double crochet of the next square. So go ahead, work your way round and meet me back once you're ready to join that round. So now that you've worked your way around and you've done your final stitch in that double crochet of that last round, we're then met by the first corner that we created, and we did a chain 3 to begin with and then a half treble crochet. We're actually going to do a slip stitch into the second stitch of that chain 3. So slip stitch into that stitch, and that completes round 1. So for this round we have increased by 8 stitches because we have done a half treble, a chain 1 and a half treble in the corner. From now on for the next rounds we're actually going to be increased by 16 stitches. So for round 2, we're going to actually insert our hook into that chain 1 space and then yarn over and pull through for a slip stitch. This is just so that it moves us over into that chain 1 space and just makes it look a little bit neater. And for this first corner, we're going to go ahead and chain 3. Again, that counts as our half treble and a chain. And then we're going to work 2 half trebles into that same stitch or that same chain space, 1 and 2. Now what we want to do is work 1 stitch into each stitch all the way across until you get to the next corner chain 1 space. So just working 1 half treble into each stitch all the way across. I'm going to leave in the PDF pattern the amount of stitches that you should have across each edge. And what I would recommend is if you have some stitch markers, go ahead and pop them in every 20 or 25 stitches, maybe even 30, however many you wish, as you go across so that you can keep count, and it just makes it a little bit easier so that you don't have to be counting all of your stitches as you go across. So go ahead, work 1 half treble into each stitch all the way across until you get to your chain 1 space, so the opposite corner, and then meet me back once you're ready. Now that you've worked your way across to the corner space, we're going to work in this chain 1 space, and we're going to do 2 half trebles, 1, 2, chain 1 and 2 half trebles, 1 and 2, and then you can continue to work 1 half treble into each stitch all the way across to the next corner, and then work your corner as we just have done. You'll work your way all the way round until you reach your first corner again, and at that point come back and I'll show you how we're actually going to finish off this corner. Once you've worked your way around and you've met yourself at this very first corner, we're going to go ahead and work a half treble into this corner space just here. Again, make sure that you are counting your stitches and do not work into that slip stitch which we created before. This will slightly sit over your chain 1, It doesn't affect the look that much. It's very minimal, but this just creates a bit of a neater corner. We're going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch into that second stitch, and we can go, or chain, and then we can go ahead and fasten off and pull out the yarn. And then we're going to be joining the main colour into this corner space just here for round 3. So let's go ahead and make a slip knot, insert our hook into that corner space, and we can go ahead and begin by chaining 3 to begin our corner. So that's a half treble and a chain, and then work 2 half trebles into the same stitch. So these rounds, round 3 to 7, are going to be exactly the same. So we're just going to work 1 half treble into each stitch all the way across to the next chain 1 space. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way across to the chain 1 space, and then meet me back once you're ready. So as before, once you've worked your way to the corner, you're going to go ahead and work 2 half trebles, a chain 1 and 2 half trebles into that corner space, and then continue by working 1 half treble into each stitch all the way across to the next corner. So you'll work that all the way round until you get to your very first corner space. So pause the video and then meet me back once you're ready. So now that you've worked your way around, we have our final stitch here and then our first corner, which we haven't quite complete yet because we only did 1 half treble. We're going to do our final half treble into that stitch and then join it with a slip stitch to that second chain of the chain 3, like so. And then we're going to go ahead and slip stitch over into that chain 1 space to start the next round. So as I say, these rounds are all going to be the same. We're going to start off with our chain 3 and then work 2 half trebles into that corner space, and then you're going to work 1 stitch into each stitch all the way across, and into the other corners you will work 2 half trebles, chain 1 and 2 half trebles. So you're going to go ahead and work until you have your 7 rounds. So there's 2 rounds of the contrast colour and then 5 rounds of the main colour. I'm just going to do this one more round and show you what the 8th round will be, just for demonstration purposes, but go ahead and pause the video and then meet me back once you're ready to do your final round. So moving on to your final round, and as I said, yours is going to be much thicker than this. We are going to work some slip stitches around the last round. So you're going to make a slip knot on your hook, and then you're going to insert your hook into the corner chain 1 space of this last round, and then pop the slip knot on the hook and pull through. And we are going to work very loosely in this round, a slip stitch into each stitch. So go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through. And you have a slip stitch and then into 1 stitch all the way around. And you're going to work a slip stitch into each of the stitches and each of the corner chain 1 spaces until you work all the way round to the very beginning. So go ahead, pause the video, work your slip stitches, meet me back once you've come to the beginning, and I'll show you how we're going to finish off. So now you've worked your way around, I'm just going to do my final slip stitch into that chain 1 space. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off, leaving a long tail end, and pull out that tail end. I'm going to take my darning needle, thread it up, and then I'm going to insert that darning needle into that first stitch. So we're going where we can see the V, we're going underneath both of those loops and pulling that through, and then finding that last stitch and going back into that stitch and bringing it round. And that just creates that last stitch to finish off that corner neatly. And then you can go ahead and sew in your ends. So I do just want to come back to this section just here where we have a little gap, and I just want to demonstrate how we can close that gap a little bit if you have one. So I'm just going to use my darning needle to just pull that closed. So I'll go that way, and then I'll also join this way just to close up that gap, and then I can go ahead and sew in that as I wish. So huge congratulations, you have now completed your Frosty Pines throw. It is absolutely stunning. I think it's just a gorgeous winter blanket. I would suggest, if you want to just block this again one last time, just to make sure that your border is sitting nice and neatly. Huge congratulations on finishing this, well done. Please make sure that you are sharing your pictures in the group because we would absolutely love to see them.